Here's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove. We're going to talk some Major League Baseball with our friend Graeme Wallace. We're going to talk all things NFL playoffs and everything going on within the NFL. And we're even going to field a listener question today to get us all started. That and more. That's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove podcast.
From Belly Up Sports and the Belly Up Podcast Network, you're listening to the Sports Stove podcast with your host, Vince Stover.
Hey, good looking. What you got cooking? How's about cooking something up with me?
Welcome into another edition of the Sports Stove podcast. And today we are presented by Belly Up Fantasy Baseball Live, starting February 20th, every Sunday at 8 p.m. on Tiki Live, Twitter, and Facebook. Belly Up Fantasy Baseball will bring you all the greatest fantasy baseball coverage, hosted by Kevin Wilson and myself, and excited for fantasy baseball to get started here very, very soon. Tonight, I'm joined, as I usually am every weekend, here by my dad, Dale Stover. Dad, how you doing?
Doing good. Boy, exciting football coming up this weekend.
Yeah, well, a lot going on with football. The USFL had some more announcements today as well. They announced two more head coaches, and then they made the announcement they'll play all the games in Birmingham this year. So that's intriguing as well. Then we're going to talk Major League Baseball today with the Hall of Fame vote coming up here. Graeme Wallace is going to join us. We'll talk about the Hall of Fame ballot. We'll talk about his article on the best free agents available. And we'll also get into the MLB PA having their counteroffer coming up as well. So Graeme will join us here in just a few minutes, and we'll talk that with him. But first, Dad, today I want us to get into a listener question. Our listener reached out and asked for our opinion, wanted to know our thoughts on college football player opt-out. So over the last several years, I seem to think, I remember it first happening with Leonard Fournette at LSU, but it may have happened before that too. But more recently, college football players have been opting out of bowl games, not playoff games or championship games, but bowl games to get ready for the NFL draft. The idea is so that they don't get injured or something happen, a freak accident or whatever it may be. And, there's a lot of opinions on that idea. Should they opt out? Should they be allowed to opt out? What does it say about the players that do opt out? Those kinds of things all around. So, Dad, let's get your thoughts on the player opt-outs first, and then I'll give you my thoughts if they're much different than yours.
Yes, well, I don't like the idea of people opting out with it. I think they're a part of the team, and if the team is there, I've heard a lot of different sides of it. I remember hearing a guy who was a former NFL player who was just so outspoken about, don't worry, players, they don't owe the college anything. The college isn't going to do anything for them once they're done. They need to protect themselves in their own career. And I thought, well, one, that's not true. The college did do something for them, whether or not they got a college education, but they gave them the platform. In other words, to be able to play football and to get the recognition that they did. And again, the idea, well, we don't want to get hurt, like you said, that only seems to apply to bowl games that aren't playoff games or championship games. People don't opt out of those, and they can get hurt in those just as easy as they can somewhere else. I think the idea of being part of a team, which really all that is changing now so much in the world of sports. But I don't like to see players opt out. I think it's going to hurt. The bowl thing is going to change at some point in time. And the fact that the players are opting out is probably going to be one of the things that makes it change, because even with, television contracts, I would think they're not guaranteed, again, to have the big name stars in the game. And then all you have is just the fans of that school really watching. You don't draw from being able to watch players, a potential Heisman guy or situations like that. So I think they ought to play. Can they make them play? No, I not in this day and time. That won't happen. From there, and maybe some teams are okay with it. I mean, you get, some teammates that say, oh, they understand, but I don't know that Everybody does. And again, I don't think, a team makes a bowl game, and then some of the players that helped them get there aren't involved anymore. And that really just changes everything. So I've never been a big fan of that, of players opting out. But again, that's probably where we're at today.
Yeah, I used to think kind of like you do, but I've changed my thoughts on it here in the last year or two, I guess. The way I look at it, Dad, is once the regular season's done, if you're not in the playoffs, the bowl really doesn't mean anything. There was a point in time where it meant a little bit more. Certain bowls especially meant a little bit more, but the bowl system is completely watered down now. And so if you're playing a meaningless game anyhow, I see it as an opportunity for the school to start looking at next year. Let's get some guys some opportunities on the field that are going to be playing for us next year when these guys graduate out. And so it's actually, I think, a good opportunity for them to see what they've got for next year a little bit with some of these players. I also look at the idea that college football players, it's more of a business now than it's ever been. And when they start to realize the kind of money that's available to them at the next level, it would be wild if someone ended their career because of an injury in a meaningless bowl game. Now, has that happened? Not recently. Matt Corral got injured, but it looks like he'll be okay. It probably will hurt his draft stock a little bit. But that being said, I think that there's I don't know. I guess I've changed in my thoughts where now I really don't care. When it first started happening, I said, oh, man, these guys are supposed to be committed to this team, to this program, to those guys in the locker room, and they need to finish it out. They need to finish strong and all those kinds of things. And then the more I looked at it, the more I realized it really doesn't matter. The coaches are leaving before the Bowls games anyhow. There's other things going on. Why not protect what's ahead of you and give you an opportunity in the future, at least, to have a better opportunity at making more money? And so that's where I sit at it now. I've changed, like I said, over the last couple of years on my opinions of it. But that being said, I don't know. I just don't care anymore. If they opted out of a playoff game or of a championship game, that would be much different because those are not meaningless games. But the other games, honestly, nowadays, they just don't mean anything. I mean, back when in the early days, Dad, when I was a kid or even before I was born, some of those bowls, and they talked about a little bit with the Rose Bowl this year. I've heard some of the guys talk about it. They just meant so much to be in the Rose Bowl, to be in the Orange Bowl, to be in the Cotton Bowl. I mean, there were different things that at different times and stages meant more. But nowadays, the best Big Ten team's not always in the Rose Bowl because they're in the playoffs. And if the playoffs aren't at the Rose Bowl, then, so then you got the second best Big Ten team. And it waters it down, doesn't it?
Yes. I mean, I think it waters down the bowl games. It's interesting, though, because I've listened to this from other coaches and everything. And when you say they're meaningless bowl games, you've got many players on every team that are seniors that are not going to go to the NFL. And I've heard it's not meaningless for them to win the last game of their college career, and for that school, for them to be able to go back and say, yes, we were such and such a bowl champion, even though it wasn't a big championship. I know, again, I follow Middle Tennessee State quite a bit, and they won the Bahama Bowl this year. And I remember Coach Stockstill saying, hey, these seniors, nobody will ever take that away from them. They'll have a ring, and yeah, they're not going to go to the NFL, but they won their last game, and they were on a team that won a bowl game, and that means something for those guys. So I mean, I know that doesn't mean a lot for sponsors and all the big money that's going on today, but to say it's meaningless, again, we're totally getting away from college athletes, student athletes when we say that.
Oh, we're way past student athlete. we moved on from that for sure. And those schools like MTSU, like other smaller schools, they're not going to have those opt-outs in most cases because those guys are playing. That is their legacy, so to say. But when you have the guys in the SEC and the Big Ten, Pac-12, so on and so forth, that it is meaningless for them individually. Is it meaningless for the team? Maybe not. And maybe that's the breakdown, right? Is that, if you think team oriented, you should play, but everyone's looking out for themselves, and it's in many cases rightfully so, and so they do what's best for them. That's our thoughts on that. Thank you, by the way, for listeners for reaching out and asking questions. Do it anytime. We'd be happy to talk about topics that you'd like us to talk about. And feel free to share your opinions in the comment sections of our social media pages as well. You can always email us, thesportsstove@gmail.com, or just message us on social media. All right. Thinking of selfish people, let's bring in now our friend Graeme Wallace. I kid. We love Graeme. Graeme is back with us to talk some baseball. How you doing, Graeme?
Doing well. Always great to be on the Sports Stove with you, Vince and Dale. Quite the introduction there.
I'm sorry to be mean. I promise I was just kidding. Graeme, there's a lot happening in the baseball world these days. The announcement came out today that came out on Thursday that the MLBPA will be presenting their counter offer. Is there any potential of positive movement out of this?
I think you always have to have potential. You always have to have hope. I think that the voices of the public, baseball fans like you and I, we really want to see a deal get made. We want to at least get some traction closer to some kind of a deal. I'm trying to remain optimistic because it's getting a little bit late, as they like to say frequently in game broadcasting. We're about a month away from spring training games being starting to be played. So I really hope that they can come up with some kind of creative solutions. I've heard some different ideas being kind of bandied about there, and I'm optimistic, but I'm also, I would say, cautiously optimistic about a deal being made in the next week or so.
Yeah, I assume that the counteroffer will be met with another counteroffer and so on and so forth until finally someone breaks a little bit and opens the door for return. When baseball gets started, you just recently posted an article on Belly Up Sports about free agents, the top free agents available. And there are some good ones and even some that have some tie to your Blue Jays. You want to just talk about some of those names that you had in your article and what you think's ahead, if there's anything that you've seen that points to some direction for those guys once they're able to sign.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Carlos Correa, even when free agency first started a couple months back, he was pretty much circled as that number one player. Certainly a potential for a $300 million contract a la A-Rod with the Rangers about 20 years ago. That limits his market. I kind of mentioned that a little bit in the writing. It's going to be the usual suspects. Could Houston bring him back? It's possible, but it's kind of seems like they're in a bit of a transition right now with some of their players from that 2017 championship season. Quite a few of them aren't on the team anymore. The Dodgers are always going to be in the mix. The Yankees are going to be there. The Red Sox have made some statements saying that they're not really interested in signing a player to that kind of a contract. You had Texas throwing around a huge amount of money to land both Marcus Semien and Corey Seager, so they're probably out of those sweepstakes. And then, the next couple guys on the list, Freddie Freeman and Chris Bryant, they have been linked to the Blue Jays, and I think more so Bryant would be a great fit. He could play third. He could play the outfield. They're kind of missing an impact infielder after Semien walked out the door there. But I really think Trevor Story can be the steal of this year's free agent class. Ryan O'Rourke, Belly Up Sports, he wrote an article about that just over a week ago, and I kind of linked that in my story as well. Look, he's basically considered the fifth best middle infielder if you want to put Semien in there with Seager, Javi Baez, and Correa as well. But, he's a terrific player. He's got really good power. I've heard of some teams being creative about maybe moving him across to the other part of the middle infield, second base, or maybe even the outfield. We heard that in the trade deadline as well. I've even heard that Colorado is going to try to win next year, and they're going to try to bring him back, which we saw the value of teams trying last year. The Braves were around 500. They made a bunch of moves, and they ended up winning the World Series. So sometimes putting your chips in the middle of the table can really pay off big dividends. So Story could definitely be a steal because he could probably be had for perhaps under $100 million. Not that that's not a lot of money, but compared to some of the contracts these other guys are going to sign, it's really not that much. There's a bit of a drop off after those top 4 or 5 guys, but there's still some real quality there in kind of the middle rankings as well.
Have you heard anything about these teams that'll be losing some of these guys? So you've already talked about some potential for the Blue Jays to bring in some high talent, but San Francisco brought in Chris Bryant midseason last year, and if they lose him, he was a pretty big part of their success late in the season as well. So are there pieces out there? I know I'm putting on the spot here, but are there pieces out there that you see as, hey, if these teams lose some of these big free agents, there are some middle tier free agents that could come in and make a difference?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I really thought Bryant was a good candidate to come back to the Bay and maybe re-sign with the Giants. Now, I'm not closing the door on that, but it's not something I've heard a lot of rumors about necessarily. Now, if they're looking to replace him, that's going to be a tough thing for them to do. Obviously, they signed Tommy La Stella last year. He was hurt for a lot of the year, but he's a solid player. They might want to supplement him. They could go into the international pool, maybe signing a guy like Saya Suzuki from the Japanese league. See, he's a guy who's garnering a lot of attention as a power hitting outfielder. Nick Castellanos is another one of those like mid-tier guys who's really increased his power hitting ability over the last several years. Career high 34 home runs last year. The thing with Brian is he's so versatile. We've seen him play third base, but he also admitted during the All-Star break that he loves playing center field. If he could have his way, that's kind of where he'd be day in, day out. Michael Conforto is another guy who I think could be an interesting player here. The Mets declined to offer him a qualifying offer. A lot of people kind of scratch their head at that. He's had a solid career, but then they ended up signing Mark Canha and also Starling Marte. So the Mets plans kind of became more clear when they did that. So those are a few candidates of players that I think they could sign. They could also go up more of an econo route by signing a guy like Josh Harrison, who's had a really nice career. A lot of success. A lot of his success has come in the National League as well. 34 years of age, he could probably still get it done for another couple of years. So those are some options. None of them are Chris Bryant. It's going to hurt their team if they don't sign him. But those are a couple of options, certainly. Now, as far as the Braves, if they lose Freddie Freeman, that's going to be a huge part of their identity. It's hard to imagine that team without him. He's such a great player and a really good guy as well. So I'd be hard pressed to think of a replacement of him on their roster. They would have to pivot somewhere, but it's hard to come up with something off the top of my head, to be honest.
Yeah, when you think of Freddie Freeman in Atlanta, honestly, he kind of reminds me of Chipper Jones. He just seems like a staple there in Atlanta, and to see him move on now, I mean, I'm not a Braves fan, but as a baseball purist, I'd be like, oh, that kind of stinks. I'd like to see him stay in Atlanta.
Same.
All right, I want to talk to you about the Hall of Fame because the ballots are being casted here very soon. But before we talk about the ballot, I want to give people an idea on where you stand when it comes to baseball. So I've got some quick questions for you, and then that'll kind of help us see where does Graeme stand in the baseball purist world. All right. Question one: should Pete Rose be in the Hall of Fame?
Oh boy, this is such a tough one for me. I've really struggled with this. I grew up with my dad saying he should never be in the Hall of Fame, and I kind of adopted that for a while until I kind of developed my own opinions. I do think he should be in the Hall of Fame. Look, he's one of the best players of all time, most hits ever. His character, obviously with the betting, but also with the taking out of the catcher in the All-Star game. I believe it's I'm snoozing on the name. I'm sorry, but
Fosse.
Ray Fosse. Thank you, Dale. Yeah. To me, that was almost worse than anything he did as far as the gambling is concerned. He doesn't seem like a great person. Now, does that mean he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame? I don't necessarily think so. I would really love for him and Major League Baseball to kind of patch things up. I feel like that ship has kind of sailed, and there's a lot of stubbornness on both sides, but I would love, and time's running out. It's getting late as well. So I would love to see that happen. I don't really think it's going to, though.
Next question: should steroid users be taken off the ballot?
I do not believe they should. So I guess I'm a bit more of a new age fan. I am in favor of some of these guys getting in. Now it's this is becoming a theme. It's getting late for a lot of them as well. They're 8, 9, 10th year on the ballot. Look, there's guys that their numbers are inflated, and you could tell just by looking at their baseball reference page, they're at 30 home runs and then boom, 50, 45, 55. There's certain guys that really stand out. And there's other guys that were already great players that just kind of elevated as far as their home run totals are concerned. I don't think all of those guys should get in. I think there's some guys that should probably be excluded. I'm not for taking them off the ballot. I think you got to leave it in the hands of the voters. I know they're sometimes biased. Sometimes they're idiotic, but I think you got to leave it up to the powers that be as far as the writers and the voters are concerned, and let them decide. I don't think they should be taken off the ballot completely, though. No.
Okay. How about the universal DH, for or against universal designated hitter?
Now, this is one I'm for. For a while, I was against it. I like the strategy involved in the National League, but I'm getting sick of watching a National League game. A guy gets on base, maybe a couple guys on base, and then there's 2 outs, and then, here comes the pitcher. Say it's the 4th inning, you don't want to take the pitcher out. It just happens too often. It happens too often, and a non-competitive at bat, he's going to get a hit maybe 8 to 12% of the time, and it's not exciting. It's not fun. Now, I understand the other side of things. This is the way things have always been, but I think baseball's biggest problem sometimes is how traditional it is and how its unwillingness to change. We've seen football embrace a lot of rule changes, and I think it's been, for the most part, really good for the sport. I would like to see baseball kind of do that as well.
Yeah, as a fan of a National League team, I'm 100% for the universal DH. I loved it when they did it during the shortened season, and I'm all for it. And then the extra innings, man on second. And I think are they going back away from that now?
I haven't heard a lot of talks about that. I think a lot of the sticking points are more about free agency and service time and eliminating tanking, some of the other big issues. No, I've kind of talked to this about this with a few friends, and I like the hybrid model. 10th inning, regular baseball. No one's on first, no one's on second. It's just brand new inning. And then maybe if it gets into the 11th, maybe start a runner on first base. And then if it gets into the 12th, second base. Now, you're not going to have too many games that go beyond that. So I'd like to see them maybe get a little bit creative and try some kind of a hybrid model when it comes to that. I don't think they will, but
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We had a lot of discussions on the Belly Up Fantasy Baseball show last year about the man on second. I was all for it. I liked it. Thought it was great. Had nothing against it. The other guys that were on the show with me hated it. So,
yeah.
all right. So let's get to the Hall of Fame ballot. Some big names on there, but not a whole lot of big names actually on the ballot this year. The guys, Barry Bonds is one of the bigger names up there, but he has all the controversy around him with the steroids. How many guys you think are getting in this year, if any?
Well, I mean, I guess we're coming off a year when we had zero. Last summer, or last year, I should say, last winter, there was zero. I believe Curt Schilling was the closest. I have 3 that I think should get in this year. Now, of those, maybe only 1 or 2, or maybe 0 will get in. But I'd be really disappointed if we have another. I can't remember. Was it last year or 2 years ago when it was 0?
I think it was 2 years ago.
Maybe 2 years ago, because I'm thinking of the year when Jeter got in as well. So for my ballot, if I don't have a vote, I'm not that high up in the baseball world just yet. But if I did, I would vote for 3 players.
Which 3 would you vote for?
So I got Curt Schilling. I think if you think about what he was able to do in the playoffs with the Phillies, Diamondbacks, and the Red Sox, 3 World Series championships, also a World Series MVP. He did win a Cy Young as well. A lot of people would say his cumulative numbers aren't quite good enough as far as the win total, things like that. But I think if you look, especially his playoff resume, he did enough. Now, he's a controversial figure. Some of the things he's said and gotten involved with after his career has ended kind of got himself into a bit of hot water with some of those things. I'm not a agreeer, or I totally denounce a lot of those things that he's involved with. That being said, I still think he deserves to be in the Hall. I know he was really disappointed when it didn't happen for him a couple of years ago. I hope this is the year for Kurt, and maybe he can turn his life around outside of the sport as well. And then I also got Barry Bonds. Now we kind of talked a little bit about players like this, and to me, he's the best of them. He's the best example of that. To me, Barry Bonds is the best baseball player I've ever seen, and that's long before he even signed with the San Francisco Giants. I still, remember him with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Guys, he hit 334 home runs as a member of the Pittsburgh Pirates, and he stole a ton of bases, and he was 8-time Gold Glove winner. He walked 232 times in one season with the Giants. Just incredible. Now, his personality and his use of steroids certainly turned a lot of folks off, and his selfish attitude a lot of the times, and his treatment of the media. You could go on and on about this, but I always say to people, he's the best baseball player I've ever seen. And for that, I think he deserves to be in there. I wish he didn't tarnish his career with some of the things he did and some of the choices he made, but he did. I think he's kind of served his time, if you will. I know he's not in jail or anything, but he's had his reputation damaged enough, and I think it's time for him to be enshrined with some of those other great ball players. And the other guy I have, another controversial figure, who I think if you just take his career with the Red Sox and the Blue Jays, he's a Hall of Famer, Roger Clemens. The fact that he was able to survive for another 10 years is just incredible. And I know the use of those substances certainly helped him in that regard. But there was just no one better than the Rocket from, the early 80s right into the 2000s. His career was so long. And, like I said, those substances certainly helped him extend that career. But just Red Sox and Blue Jays to me was enough. And the Yankees was almost like the cherry on top for him.
Awesome. Dad, any questions for Graeme?
No, very interesting. Enjoyed hearing about that, and especially the take on the free agents and everything. Again, I was interested about and I probably don't pronounce it right, but Castellanos there, because I live up here in Reds country now, and to me that would be a big blow if they lose him. But does it look like they probably will?
I wouldn't close the door on that, but I also wouldn't be too sad about it. I think guys like Castellanos are kind of dime a dozen. I think he's a very good player. He's a developing power hitter, but he's going to hurt you in the field. If you could get a better defensive outfielder, someone along the lines of like a Carson Nimmo or something like that, he's a comparable player. Maybe not the power, but he's a guy who can be replaced, especially if you think about some of the other power that you have in that lineup with a guy like Jesse Winker. If he could repeat the season he had last year, I think the Reds will be just okay, especially if they're able to supplement a loss like Castellanos with another decent ball player.
Yeah, and the Reds, the one thing they had was power. They did not have a bullpen, but they did have some power on that team as well. All right. I think that's it for now. Graeme, thanks for being with us. You can find Graeme on Twitter at Bus Wallace, B-U-S Wallace, Belly Up Sports. Find him on bellyupsports.com and Jay's Journal as well. And you can catch Graeme occasionally on Belly Up Fantasy Live with us talking baseball throughout the year. And so I'm sure we'll see him a few times throughout the year as well. So, Graeme, hope you're doing well. Thanks for spending some time with us again today.
Yeah, you bet. Always great to be on with you guys, and good luck to the Packers this weekend.
Thank you. Go Pack, go. We'll see you, Graeme.
We'll see you.
All right, that's Graeme Wallace from Belly Up Sports and from the Jay's Journal, and always appreciate Graeme coming on. He's a great guest and always has great material for us there as well. All right, Dad, we're going to get into the NFL as the playoffs continue to roll through. We're down to the final 8 teams left in the playoffs. We'll start off talking about the games this week, and then we'll go backwards and talk about last week and the things that happened last week as well. But I want to make sure we get enough time to talk about this week and what's ahead for the NFL. So we're starting off Saturday's first game is the Bengals versus the Titans. I've been very anti-Titan and very pro-Bengals all season long. Joe Burrow made it his first win, but the Bengals haven't won a road playoff game possibly ever. I think I saw a stat on that today. So they go to Nashville to play the Titans. Ryan Tannehill leading the way. Derrick Henry supposedly making his return this week as well. Dad, what are you expecting out of the game in Nashville this weekend?
Well, again, around here, there's just massive, unbelievable excitement about the Bengals because they haven't been in this situation for a long time. As I try to think through it, the Titans obviously have a little bit more. Well, they have more playoff experience, but I think the Bengals. I think the Bengals have a really good chance here. If Burrow plays like he has been playing the last few weeks, and their defense seems to come up with big plays, big sacks, big plays when they need to, if they can do that, then they'll be right in this game. There'll be no doubt about it. I think it should be a close game. Now, will Derrick Henry play, and how big of a deal will that be? Again, we've talked about this. I think the only question with the Bengals, or the biggest question, is coaching. They haven't been there. They haven't been in this situation. So I'm going to be real interested to see how they come out and start the game. Is excitement going to get to them, or are they going to be able to just play solid football? They've got weapons. They've got offensive weapons. They can control the game in a lot of ways. So it'll be interesting. But again, they're in Tennessee. I know the fans will be super excited there. And there is more experience, both probably in the coaching realm as well as, the player realm as far as being in the playoffs. I think the Bengals have a chance to really, if they win this game, then it will have been a special season for them to get in the AFC Championship. Most people didn't think they could win the division. People thought they could probably get in the playoffs, but not be the division winner. So real excited to see that. Of course, the Titans, I'm with you. I'm just shocked that they're the number one seed. Not shocked that they won the division necessarily, even though I thought Indianapolis was going to make a move on it. But so it should be, there should all be good games, but this should be a very interesting one to watch.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. Vrabel's probably coach of the year. I mean, what he did in Tennessee this year with losing Derrick Henry and still winning games, even though the division was really, really weak this year, that's, kudos to Vrabel and to the Titans. The Bengals, what they have to do to win this game is start fast. They got to get a lead because that will limit Derrick Henry to some degree. Now, from what we've seen of Derrick Henry, if he's healthy, you can run Derrick Henry even if you're behind and still catch up possibly. So if he's fully healthy, Derrick Henry will make a big difference in this game, but the Bengals can limit that by getting ahead early. I like what the Bengals have offensively. I think they have a great amount of talent. I think that Coach Taylor has proven this year that he was the right man for the job in Cincinnati, and now it's, can he get him over that next step, which is winning a game on the road in the playoffs. And so I'm going to go ahead and pick the Bengals in this game. I think it's going to be close. Titans are a 3.5-point favorite. But I think Cincinnati has the firepower to do what needs to be done against Tennessee. And I think they're a more talented team. The question mark is Derrick Henry. How healthy is he? And how much of an impact will he have? I'm assuming that Henry is not fully healthy. I'm assuming that he's got some rust on him. And for that reason, I'm going to go with Cincinnati. If Derrick Henry was fully healthy, and I knew that, I would probably pick Tennessee here. But I think I'm going to go with Cincinnati this week. All right.
I would agree with that.
Okay. Next game on Saturday is the 8:15 kickoff. Green Bay Packers hosting San Francisco 49ers. It's going to be cold in Lambeau. I think the high for Saturday is supposed to be in the mid-20s, the low in single digits. But San Francisco and Green Bay, they have a little bit of a history. Obviously, LaFleur and Shanahan are friends and coach together and all those kinds of things. And San Francisco has had, at different times, advantage against Green Bay, but Green Bay has also beat them this year and in recent years as well. You look at quarterback, Rodgers and Garoppolo. You take Rodgers any day of the week. I would take the Packers running backs. I would take the Packers receivers. The question is the defense, I think, for Green Bay. And they've been playing pretty well, but we've seen the defense and the special teams at times really just put a dagger in for Green Bay. So let's get your thoughts, San Francisco and Green Bay.
Well, I think being home field with Lambeau being full this year, it is going to be cold, and it's the evening game, so it'll be single digits most of the time. I think that will have an effect. I think when you look at it, I think Green Bay will need to be able to control the game with the running game, as well as, of course, Rodgers does a great job, with that, then with play action. But they're going to need to do that because I don't know if you can stop Deebo Samuel. And he plays the type of game that gives the Packers defense fits. So I think the key is going to be to come out. They need to start fast, which they have not done necessarily all year. And then they're going to need to control the game. They can do that with their offensive line and with their running game, no doubt about it, and with the system that they play. But I think they need to play from the front. From there, again, of course, they're always capable of coming back. The defense is going to be the key. It's interesting, too, because it looks like they're going to get a lot of players back, some very good players. I don't think these guys will play the whole game. So it's interesting to see how that's going to fit and integrate in. Of course, they've been practicing all week, and I think it'll just make them better. I do think their locker room is such that this is not going to be divisive to have these players come back and maybe even be the starters. But I especially on defense, it just gives them a lot of great rotation that they haven't had. You're right, special teams has always been a problem. They got a new returner a week or two ago. He's back now. I think he'll be the guy returning without a doubt. One thing I thought of, too, with these other players coming back, it may give them a little more talent for special teams. Guys, that normally they didn't play as much special teams. They may have their choice. The coach may have this choice of guys a little more because of all the people coming back. So it'll be interesting. Green Bay should be ready to go. Again, San Francisco, you hear, then they have been the hottest team lately. But when you look at the records and you look at the whole year, Green Bay, again, last year won this game at home, and then they won this one but didn't win in the championship. They've got everything right there in front of them. I would expect them to come out and be ready.
Yeah, you talk about the players coming back. It always scares me when these guys have been out for a long time and they come back because the defense has kind of been clicking as of late. But I think you said it perfectly. They've got now rotational guys that they can bring in. So even if these guys only play 10 snaps, that's 10 snaps that you're having all pro caliber talent in there, and that makes a big difference. It always worries me when you get into a routine and now it's going to be changed, even though they're good players. It's taking people out of what they were doing well over the last several weeks. So I'm interested to kind of see where all those things go as well. And defense, you mentioned it with Deebo Samuels. Defense is what scares me the most about Green Bay right now, even though they've played relatively well. That hurts, I think. We got a comment here. Packers coach said they were studying the 49ers last week because they knew Dallas was going to get beat. Ouch. So there you go. LaFleur's friends with Shanahan, so maybe that played into it a little bit. But San Francisco scares me, Dad. The Packers are 5.5-point favorites. This game could be a 2-touchdown win for Green Bay, or it could be a field goal win for Green Bay, or it could be a field goal win for San Francisco. I think San Francisco is a dangerous team. Bosa is, he had a concussion last week, but supposedly he'll be ready to play this week, which is big for San Francisco. The Green Bay defense has to step up, has to play big-time football here this week. I'm picking Green Bay, but I admit I'm scared this week against San Francisco.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I'll pick Green Bay, but I'll feel better when this one's over and we get a win. It could go right down to the wire. If it goes down to the kicker, they've got a kicker that's kicked a lot in Green Bay because he was in Chicago there for a while. And again, like you said, it could be a 2-score game in Green Bay's favor. I think it'll be a matter of them getting at least some kind of lead and then being able to really run, control the ball, and control the clock. Because the defense does have a to have a tendency to come up with the big play every now and then when they need to. So if they can keep it where they need to, and again, if you make Garoppolo try to beat you, then you're probably in pretty good shape. And that's what will happen if you get a lead.
Well said. And I don't trust Mason Crosby on the last-second field goal this year, although he's done better later in the season. But he's had some rough moments this year as well. All right, Sunday then, 3 o'clock kickoff, kind of a weird time. The Rams and Tampa. Tampa will host this game. Tampa is a 3-point favorite. The Rams are a scary team, Dad. And I said it, last week. Tampa, they got lucky playing Philadelphia because they came in kind of hurt. They lost 2 receivers this season. They looked decent, but they were playing the Eagles, so I'm not sure how much we can take from that. Los Angeles came out and proved a point against Arizona. Took them to the woodshed, so to say. And, but Stafford's kind of banged up as well. So where are you leaning with Tampa and the Rams?
Well, I would pick the Rams, but again, it's hard to ever go against Tom Brady. I mean, he's going to have the team ready to play. But I do think the Rams, we've all year there's been times when you said, wow, the Rams, they're the team to beat. And if they come out and play that way and they have the talent, they have the defense, to be able to handle things there. I don't know totally how healthy Tampa Bay is going to be. Now it is in Tampa, but again, I think this is a game, that the Rams definitely can win. And if they play like they did last week, I think they will.
I think I saw the stat where every year that Tom Brady has played Matt Stafford in week 3 of the regular season, he ended up winning a Super Bowl. He played Matt Stafford this year in week 3. So if that means anything, I don't know. But you got the Rams going from West Coast to East Coast. I'm looking to see. They didn't really play anybody else on the East Coast this year. I'm quickly flipping through their the East Coast teams that they played them at home, except for the Ravens, and they beat the Ravens 20-19 on the road. So, I think the Rams have the most talent on their team, on their roster, but they haven't been consistent this year. Stafford has not played as well as I thought he would. You said it's hard to go against Tom Brady, but Arians is out there giving his own players concussions, smacking them in the head and acting like a fool. And they got coaches interviewing for jobs and all those kinds of things make me think it's kind of the perfect storm. And I think Los Angeles can pull this one off. I think they're the better team, all around better team. But that being said, Tampa has a great coaching staff and they have some incredible players as well. But that being said, I think Los Angeles, I'm going to go with Los Angeles in this one. I'm not confident in this pick. But to me, the Rams seem to be the better team here, and they should come out because weather shouldn't be a big issue in Tampa. So I think the Rams come out and win this game against Tampa on Sunday.
Yes, I'd agree with that. I would pick the Rams.
All right, then Sunday night, 6:30 p.m. kickoff is the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. This one should be the AFC Championship game. But the way that it works out and the seedings and everything, obviously, that's not the way it worked out this year. Josh Allen coming off an incredible game last week. Kansas City, I thought, was the best team coming into the AFC's playoffs. But Buffalo kind of piqued my interest this past week. They've been good. They haven't been consistent, but they've been good here at the end of the year. This one should be the most entertaining game of the weekend, I think. What are your thoughts, Buffalo going to Kansas City?
Well, I mean, I think you asked me last week who thought it'd be in the Super Bowl and the AFC. I said Buffalo, and I think I would still hold to that. Kansas City's very good. It's in Kansas City, but again, when you play in Buffalo, I don't think weather affects you there. You do have the crowd. Some of the greatest fan situations anywhere is there in Kansas City. But again, Buffalo has started to play well now. Again, I think they're well coached. They have a lot of talent. There's been some question about their running game, but they've been effective running the ball some too. But if Josh Allen comes out and has a game he can have, I think Buffalo can advance to the championship game.
Yeah, so I picked Kansas City to go to the Super Bowl. And this one, like I said, it kind of woke me up a little bit, made me think a little harder about it now coming into this week. you said Buffalo struggled some on the ground this year, but when you play Kansas City, it's hard to struggle on the ground. They have a horrible run defense. They've gotten better as the season's come on. But what it comes down for them is their offense. And you have Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. You've got these guys that are just amazing players, and they can make a huge difference in a game and can turn the tide. Kansas City can score so fast, but so can Buffalo, and they've got a great quarterback in Josh Allen who can run and pass the ball. They've got good receivers. They've got an okay run game, but their defense is incredible. I think they were the number one defense this season, and I predicted Kansas City going to the Super Bowl, so I'll go ahead and pick Kansas City this week. But I admit, Buffalo has my attention, and I would not be surprised at all if Buffalo comes out and not only wins this game, but handily wins this game against Kansas City. I think Kansas City's fragile. I think they're good, but I think they're fragile, and I think you can kind of get them doubting very quickly if you can get a fast start from Buffalo. I'll pick Kansas City, but like I said, I think a fun AFC Championship game day would be Buffalo and Cincinnati. Those fan bases would be a fun time all the way around as well. But I'm going to go with Kansas City in this one, hesitantly, needless to say, and maybe just to hold face since I picked them to go to the Super Bowl as well this year. Let's talk about last week a little bit. Let's start with the Philadelphia Eagles. They looked horrible pretty much the whole game. Towards the end of the game, they were able to put up a couple touchdowns. A lot of people were wondering if Gardner Minshew would get a shot there in the second half. He did not. What's Jalen Hurts' future like in Philadelphia? Is he going to be their quarterback next year, or are they already looking to move on from him?
I don't know. I think there's a chance that they will still stay with him and see if he can develop. I don't know if that's what they should do or not. I'm a little surprised that Minshew didn't get a chance. Again, I think he's proved this year. I think he'll be one of the guys that teams looking for quarterbacks. I think he's worth, taking a look at for sure. With Philadelphia, I have no idea what they're going to be thinking for next year. So
Hurts is like the perfect backup quarterback. He's a guy that can come in and win a game. He can hold the boat there for a couple of games if you need him to. But if you want him there for 17 games in a regular season, it just doesn't seem like he's the guy that's going to get it done for you. And now maybe if he gets put in a different system, but Philadelphia ran the ball a lot with him. Miles Sanders, when healthy, had a decent year as well. Jalen Hurts is a guy that he's winning is in his blood, but I'm not sure that the NFL quarterback position is, and that could make it hard for him moving forward. But then again, the question is who do you get? Who do you replace him with? Do you replace him with Gardner Minshew? Do you replace him with Deshaun Watson? Do you replace him with a rookie? There are no rookies out there right now that make you go, "Oh, this guy's awesome." So, that it puts you in a bad spot, I think, if you're Philadelphia this year with Jalen Hurts as your quarterback. You almost might have to go with him into next season as your quarterback just based off of the limited options that are available to you out there for sure. Let's talk about Arizona. Arizona and Los Angeles faced off. Arizona has had a really rough end of the season. They had a great start to the season. They did not end so well. Do you think Arizona needs to shake things up, thinking mainly with coaching, but maybe other positions that kind of come to mind?
Well, I thought about that, and I heard it talked about this week. I think Arizona, with Kingsbury there, has improved every year. Now, again, this year was tough because it looked like they were really going to be a power, and then all of a sudden they really did struggle. I think they ought to stay with him and with Murray and everything at least one more year. I don't see shaking it up. I think they've got some talent there. They've got some ability. I don't know. I know you've never been big on Kingsbury as an NFL coach. And it may not work out, but at this point, the way they have improved and some of the things they've shown, I think it'd be worth. I'd be surprised, and I don't think they probably ought to make a change yet.
Yeah, it'd be hard to move on from them, I think, this year. But you look at this team and how talented they were and what a great start of the season they had. I think you saw their ceiling this year. I think they're the second best team in the West. I think that they are the seventh best team, maybe sixth best team in the NFC. I don't think Kingsbury is going to get you a Super Bowl. I just don't think he has that in him. And but he's done better than I thought he would do when he got hired. I did not think he would have as much success as he had. Kyler Murray, you know, he's great when healthy, but he doesn't stay healthy. DeAndre Hopkins is great when healthy, but he wasn't healthy this year. AJ Green did not add what they were hoping he would add to the team. Zach Ertz didn't add what they were hoping he would add. The defense was banged up as well. I agree with you. I think one more year makes sense, but I think the leash will be shorter going into next season with the idea of, hey, the expectations are high for this team, and if they don't get met, maybe it's time to try to find someone else to come in and finish off what Kingsbury started here in Arizona. You like Kyler Murray, right?
Yes. I've been very surprised. I sure didn't think he would break on the scene as quick as he did, but I think he's a guy you can build a team with. It sure looks like it. Yeah,
I mean, and he has moments, though, where he looks really bad. A lot of people are saying he should go play baseball, those kinds of things. I don't think that's the case. I think he's where he's supposed to be, but he needs to continue to make progress. He needs to continue to get better, be more consistent as he grows as an NFL quarterback as well. And then I want to talk about Dallas and San Francisco. That game, Dad, was absolutely crazy. And sitting here, they're marching down the field, the Cowboys were, and I just thought, wow, they're actually going to do this because all they had to do was get the touchdown, the extra point, they win the game. I thought they had a really good opportunity at it. And then the last play call, the quarterback draw up the middle to slide and then try to spike the ball and get one more play in. What's your thoughts on it? Right call, wrong call, coach's fault, Dak's fault? Where do you lean on that?
It was the wrong call, I think. The way they'd been moving the ball and getting 9 or 10 yards at a time, I expect them to throw another out, get another 8, 9, 12 yards. And then, they're close enough to take a good shot at it there. Again, I've heard, all the talk this week, and the deal as well was going to be a long Hail Mary, but they had another play to run. And even when I saw Dak running, I thought, well, here in a minute, he's going to swerve toward the sideline and, run out of bounds and get the clock stopped. So when he kept running up the field, I thought, what in the world is going on? As far as the play, the way it got messed up, I've heard a lot of talk this week, and it does fall on coaching because that's a situation that should be practiced, should be talked about. People should have known how to handle that to try to get it, with the official and the lineman to get out of the way where they could have spiked it there. I think the play was ill-advised, but again, it was not executed well either. To me, the thing that really hurt Dallas was I was watching the game with your mom and we were talking about it. And I said early on, now Dallas is not disciplined. And all of a sudden, here's penalty after penalty after penalty. You got defensive linemen tackling offensive linemen when they've got everything going in the right direction for them. I mean, it was just the penalties really stacked up and hurt them from there, or the game might not have been as close, come down to the final play there at the end. So I think it does fall some on coaching, but that's something, again, I think McCarthy's going to take a little more time to get his system and discipline in place. But I think the fact that they're not real disciplined, they got great defensive players, but their team as a whole, I think the penalties really hurt.
Do you put any fault on the official for how he ran into the back of the lineman? He ran into Dak Prescott. Is there anything that you can look at and say, yeah, the official also, not only the play calling, not only the play execution, but the officiating also was a problem there?
I don't think this was the official's fault. No, I don't think from there. I mean, he had to get the offensive guy out of the way to get to the ball. And like you said, a lot of experienced quarterbacks know, hey, get the ball to the official so he can get it set. And so I don't think it was the official's fault on this one.
Yeah, I think coaching has some to do with this, but I think it was execution was the biggest problem. Prescott had wide open field, so I actually thought the play call wasn't horrible. The difference was Prescott needed to go down about 4 yards earlier to make sure he had plenty of time to get the ball set and get the spike down before anything else happened. He just had to understand it wasn't about gaining as many yards as you can. It's using the time that you have wisely. And had he gone down 4 yards earlier, 5 yards earlier, then they could have got the ball set, spiked the ball. They would have had one shot at the end zone. I would have taken 2 shots at the end zone personally, and gone from there. But that's because, I mean, you get pass interference called. You get a pass interference in the end zone. Next thing you know, you're first and goal at the goal line. And so that would seem to make the most sense. Kellen Moore, who's being interviewed for head coaching jobs, may not have the opportunity to be head coach now this next year because of that play call. Mike McCarthy is gaining a lot of heat for it as well. And time management has not been Mike McCarthy's strong point. Neither has discipline been his strong point, especially in the later years at Green Bay and now his first year at Dallas as well. So that was a crazy ending to the game. I think there's a lot of fault to go around. I think their official was at fault too. I don't think he's the main problem, but as an official, you've got to be a little bit better at getting through the line. He pushed Dak Prescott past the offensive lineman, and that's just, and then he moved the ball back 2 yards after he spotted it too. I mean, you could have just touched it and moved on. But either way, Dallas is the biggest fault in that situation. They blew an opportunity to take the lead there at the end. And I'm interested to see what excitement happens this weekend in the NFL as well, and what's ahead for these playoffs, because it definitely will be exciting. All right, I want to let everybody know you can catch our program Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 7 a.m. and 2 p.m. on the Tiki Live app on your streaming TV. You go to the Tiki Live app, go to the search, type in Belly Up, and it'll pop up. Click on that. We'll be on. Very soon we'll be in the channel menu as well. But for now, that's the way to do it. You can always listen to us on the podcast version wherever you get your podcasts as well. Today's episode is presented by Belly Up Fantasy Baseball Live, starting February 20th. You can catch Belly Up Fantasy Baseball live on Facebook, Twitter, and on the Tiki Live app. Hosted by Kevin Wilson and myself. We'll bring you player rankings for the first several weeks. We'll even have a live draft coming up in March. And then all throughout the season, we'll keep you updated on all that's going on in the fantasy baseball world as well. Thank you to Graeme Wallace for being on with us tonight. Sure appreciated him. Thanks, Dad, as well, for joining me again. Catch us on Monday morning for the next episode. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Sports Stove as well. Dad, any closing thoughts?
No, like I said, it's going to be a great week of football. Great weekend. Should be really good games. Hopefully they will be all the way along. Hopefully the officials won't be deciding these, but it seems like there's always problems coming in the playoffs. So you never know. You think, boy, there's going to be exciting big plays, but you never know what's going to happen with the officials.
Hopefully the Packer game will be really boring. Hopefully they'll blow them out. We won't have to stress out at all anyways there. All right, that's friends, have a good time. Enjoy football this weekend and everything else going on as well. Until next time, we'll see you around the Sports Stove.